I call this meeting back to order. The next item on our agenda is House File 3829. Representative Hertaz, would you like to move House File 3829 before the division? Actually,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'll move House File 3829 for possible inclusion in the division report.
thank you, Representative Hertaz. Sorry, I kind of sprung that on you. I should have given people a moment to settle in. Next up, we have House File 3829, Representative Lueck. I see you also have an amendment. Representative Hertaz, would you like to move the A1 amendment?
So move, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Lueck. Before we vote on the amendment, would you like to briefly describe your amendment?
Yes, what that does is removes an element that, as I believe Chair Marquardt mentioned, would more properly be funded through the PFA system. It would be part of the sewer sanitary system. So we're removing that element from the bill.
Thank you, Representative Lueck. With that, members, any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, this will be a voice vote, so please unmute yourself. All those in favor of the A1 amendment, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Representative Lueck, welcome to the committee. Please present your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. You got a bright committee here, but I'm wearing these sunglasses. I had minor surgery this morning, eye surgery. So, anyway, House File 3829. What that does, it would provide the opportunity for City of Aitkin to put before their residents a proposal to impose a 1% sales tax. The intention there would be to raise $8.3 million for a new municipal building, as well as $1 million for investment to improve their city park and trail system. We've got the city administrator, Mark Skibich, with us, and he can go into detail. Also, you have a summary provided by the city of Aitkin that provides some more background information on tax capacity, levies, those types of things. With that, I'll turn it back to Madam Chair and our testifiers.
Here to testify is Aitkin City Manager Mike Skirich. Please state your name for the record so I can hear you pronounce it.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, all. My name is Mike Skirich. I am the City Administrator in Aitkin. I want to thank you all for considering our proposal and having us in this afternoon to talk to you. As you go through the narrative and just a quick little overview of everything, I think it becomes the first thing or some of our financial realities. And I think that basically our tax capacity is about 1.6 million. We're taxing at about 104% now. There are about 150 million in non-revenue properties in our city. And that's a 2022 estimate. When I talked to the assessor and he was reconfiguring things, we were at about 120 million last year. With the revaluation, they were looking at 25 to 28% on a lot of properties. So we're right about $150 million. Then we're going to have an expansion at our hospital, which is going to be about another $60 million. So we're looking at about a couple $100 million in non-revenue properties, and the people of Aitkin are trying to pull the wagon here, and our taxing authority is only like 1.6 million. I think if Chair Yoakum asked about our levy increases and how aggressive we've been in the past few years, I think as you look at them, we were 21%, 14, 10, 9. We had one small year in 2018, and then 2017 and 16 we're back in that 8.5 to 9% range. So the council has been aggressive, and I think our reality is that because we're covering so much area, our revenues are not growing as quickly as our expenses are. And I think a lot of small communities are in the same type of a situation, but it's impacted the city greatly. I'm new here, and so is the mayor. And so as we're coming into this situation, In the last couple of years, they spent about $1.2 million making up for budget shortfalls. Part of that's more effective budgeting and capital planning, but things have come along that happen to cities, and you need to have the proper amount of money sitting around in case it does. And they've had a tough time the last couple of years. So as you look at the financial implications of the whole thing, I think Vice Chair Gomez asked, who's going to end up paying for this, and how's that going to work out? And the last time we talked about, how many places are in the 12 township area in the city that we serve, how many of those people are seasonal and don't actually live here. I believe that's about 43% of our total. And we notice that when the vacation season starts here, weekends and come Thursday, Friday, like that, our traffic and activity in this community swell dramatically. And that's a real positive thing, because we're getting people through here. But nonetheless, it strains our resources, and that's kind of where we're at. And I believe, looking at things, that a large portion of the tax would be paid by regional commerce and tourists and seasonal visitors who have vacation homes and things like that here. And as you look at the whole deal, I think that it would help us to take care of the things that we need to get taken care of from a community standpoint. In talking with citizens that come to our council meetings and things like that, they're concerned about our local property taxes, and there's been suggestions that we should have a local sales tax so that the people in town aren't paying for everything that's happening around our region and the 12 townships that we serve. So I think it's a pretty, if you look at the numbers, you can see why we're struggling. And so it's pretty clear that's what's happening. I think it's also clear that there's the potential for a lot of people from the outside to help contribute to this. And those people also get to use our resources. They have fire protection and police protection from us when they need it. They also use our park as a regional resource. Our plans for our upgrading of the park are all regionally driven. We're working with groups from Grand Rapids all the way down the Mississippi to here, trying to create some different ecotourism and things like that. We're also working with the county on our park system to extend some of the trails and ATV things that became possible because we had some old property called the tank trails where they used to actually come here and try out, the National Guard used to try out tanks here and stuff. So we've got a lot of stuff like that going on that's going to be available to all the people in the region who would be paying the tax. And there doesn't seem to be a big concern about us having that. I think a larger concern seems to be in the comments that I see, are people are way concerned about their property taxes. And it's understandable. That's kind of how they feel. So looking at the big picture, the biggest piece of the pie is public services, safety, and working on a building and stuff like that. The buildings we have are very old. They're probably 50s, 60s type things. There are structural issues. There are leaking roof issues. There are just reasons that they're not particularly efficient anymore. And by doing something different, we should be able to lower our operating costs and improve our sustainability over time and still serve all the people that we take care of as a regional center. So that's pretty much the basis of it. And if you have questions, I'd be glad to try to answer any that anybody has.
Thank you, Mr. Skirbich. Members, any questions for Mr. Skirbich or Representative Lueck? Seeing none, Representative Lueck, final word.
Well, thank you, Chair Joaquin and committee members. Just to point out the situation with the facilities, the city manager right now is sitting in a leased office, not City Hall, because the facilities where the mayor and the staff are actually rental property. The city hall is is now the police force and the fire department have had to expand. So that gives you a perception of why they're looking for a new building so we can get at least get the staff in the same building as where they actually hold their council meetings and those types of things. So thank you, members. Appreciate it. Please consider it.
Thank you, Representative Lueck. With that, I lay over House File 3829 as amended for possible inclusion in the Property Tax Division report. The next item on our agenda is House File 3473. Representative Fisher, would you like to move House File 3473 before the division?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to move House File 3473 before the division.
Thank you, Representative Fisher. Representative Freiberg, I see that you also have an amendment. So Representative Fisher, would you like to move the A1 amendment?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to move the A1 amendment to House File 3473.
Thank you, Representative Fisher. With that, Representative Freiberg, welcome to the committee. And would you please describe your amendment?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the bill as drafted would have waived the requirement that there be a separate question for each of the 3 projects described in the bill. The amendment just gets rid of that exception and makes it more consistent with current practice.
Thank you, Representative Freiberg. Members, with that, we'll vote on the amendment. It'll be a voice vote, so please unmute. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The amendment is adopted. Representative Freiberg, please present your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the City of Golden Valley is requesting a local sales tax authority of 0.5% to help fund a new remote fire station, a public safety building, and a public works building. The City of Golden Valley is having quite a few issues with its buildings, which the testifiers will speak about. And the fire department is looking to change from a on-call volunteer system, which I know you know about, Chair Joachim. So I won't belabor that. And I know we are on a tight time frame, so I will just, with that, turn it over to my testifiers.
Thank you, Representative Freiberg. With us today, we have the Physical Development Director of Golden Valley, Mark Novinsky. Mr. Novinsky, please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Mark Novinsky. I'm the Physical Development Director at the City of Golden Valley. With me this afternoon as well is Bethany Brunsell, our Assistant Fire Chief, who will speak to a few of the issues that our fire department is experiencing. I'd like to thank Representative Freiberg for authoring our bill as well. As Representative Freiberg noted, we are looking at a 0.5% sales tax to help with the construction of a remote fire station, a new public safety building, and a new public works facility. The city has arrived at the conclusion for these needs following a years-long analysis of our facilities, which included guidance from a resident and business task force and 3 community engagement events. In your packet is a summary of the study, the issues that we face, and the recommendations that came out of that study. So I won't go into a great amount of detail, I guess, other than to say, our facilities generally range in age from 30 to 60 years old. They no longer accommodate modern vehicles or modern equipment or modern operations. Our police officers do not have the locker room storage that they need, and they're operating on multiple levels and in a very inefficient way. Due to construction type and of our buildings and the land limitations that we have, we did look at the potential for expanding and remodeling our buildings. But because of those restrictions, we're just not able to cost effectively do that or even meet just basic space requirements. The goal of our study was really to help us develop a long-term phased approach to developing and addressing the city's building needs. We did rely on a number of other studies that have been done in the past, generally over the past 10 years or so. The maybe most notable study of those was our 2016 fire rescue report that identified the need for the city to shift from a 3-station paid-on-call staffing model to a 2-station duty crew model. And if it's okay with the chair, I would like to introduce Assistant Fire Chief Bethany Brunsell to talk a little bit about what our staffing needs are in the fire service.
Assistant Fire Chief Brunsell, please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, my name is Bethany Brunsell. I'm Assistant Fire Chief with Golden Valley Fire. And as been mentioned, we are facing, like many departments in Minnesota, a challenge where we need to look at our paid on call staffing model and change that to, we're looking at a duty crew model where we have our stations staffed by part-time firefighters. And with part of the research that's been done, it's been identified that a 2-station is going to be the right size for our department instead of 3 stations. Our current stations are all over 40 years old right now. They are not big enough to safely accommodate the size of modern fire trucks. They also are not good in terms of cancer prevention issues that are out there, that right now our firefighters have to get dressed and their gear is stored right next to where diesel exhaust is from our trucks. Additionally, our stations being more than 40 years old, this was before female firefighters were common. So we need to make sure that our current stations are accommodating for both male and female firefighters. So for equity for men and women, for safety, we're really in a place where we do need to have a new fire station built, for 2 new stations built, I should say, to accommodate not only our staffing changes, but even just our current operations are not suitable for our current stations.
Thank you, Assistant Chief Brunsell. Members, well, actually, I have a quick question. As a reminder, I know when we met before, we have, as a committee, have been discussing public safety buildings, public works buildings kind of being on that cusp of whether or not they should be under the local option sales tax or something a city should provide. But I remember right, you had a unique issue with having to move public safety around to get the fire stations in, or will either Mr. Novinsky or Assistant Chief Brunsell, Mr. Novinsky, why don't you explain that to the committee?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Yes, our challenge, we have a couple of goals that we need to meet. So we've talked about the remote fire station. We also have a public safety building that includes both our police and fire department. That's currently on our city campus in the heart of downtown, next to our city hall facility, and also right next to our public works buildings. We're all on one big campus. We need to move our public works facilities out of downtown. We're a pedestrian oriented area, and we have conflicts with pedestrians and large vehicles. And public works, as you can imagine, just isn't a great fit in the downtown area. However, to relocate and build a new public safety facility, however, and meet the goals and objectives that the city has, we need to relocate our public works facilities first. They're kind of taking up the biggest chunk of our downtown block. And it's important that we believe to keep our public safety facility in the downtown and part of our city campus for access to public safety from our citizens and transparency and all the good and desirable things that we're trying to do in terms of engagement with public safety and our citizens. So we don't want to just push them off to some remote location separate from our city hall area. So public works needs to move first, then we would construct public safety in the downtown, and then also construct a remote fire station that Assistant Chief Brunsell described for you. So
Thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
no, and I just, in the interest of being, fully transparent with the committee, we are looking at a projected cost of about $134 million over our scheduled 18-year build out. That 18-year build out schedule came from our study as we tried to figure out what is a schedule, a rate of investment that our community can absorb. We are a higher, we're a high debt city. We've invested heavily in our infrastructure over the years, and we have some debt that we have to drive down. We've been working to do that. The projected revenue from the local sales tax is about $84 million over a 30-year period. And we are also looking to other options. We know that there are some opportunities for bonding dollars that we're pursuing. We know that we'll have to probably increase our levy to pay for some additional debt. We've also are looking at some options to explore federal funding. I'd like to just note that Golden Valley's population, daytime population, increases from about to about 30,000 employees that work in Golden Valley. Our nightly population, our residents, are only about 22,000. So we do have a big influx of people during the day that do rely on our city services that do not live here. So with that, Madam Chair, I would stand for any questions that you or the committee might have, and I thank you again for hearing our bill.
Thank you, Mr. Nowinski. Members, do we have any questions? Seeing none. With that, Representative Freiberg, final word.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the committee's consideration of this. You know, it's an important, these are important projects in a city that's got some unique circumstances facing it. So just appreciate your positive consideration.
Thank you, Representative Freiberg. With that, I lay over House File 3473 as amended for possible inclusion in the Property Tax Division report. The next item on our agenda is House File 3703. Representative Hertaus, would you like to move House File 3703 before the division?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move House File 3703 for possible inclusion in the division report.
Thank you, Representative Hertaus. Representative Grossell, welcome to the committee and please present your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for giving us this time to present this bill, House File 3703, a bill relating to the taxation, local sales, and use, authorizing the city of Blackduck to impose to make some upgrades and renovations where needed. And Madam Chair, I'll just brevity is our friend, as we discussed the other day. So I'm going to turn it over to the Blackduck City Administrator, Christina Regas, to go more into detail as to what the city is proposing.
Thank you, Representative Grossell. Blackduck City Administrator Christina Regas, please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Christina Regas. I'm the City Administrator for the City of Blackduck, and I'm pleased to have this opportunity to testify on behalf of the City of Blackduck to endorse House File 3703 to adopt a 0.5% local sales tax to support City of Blackduck regional amenities. For those of you that are not aware, the City of Blackduck is a small northern Minnesota community and draws visitors from all over Minnesota, North and South Dakota, Iowa, and Wisconsin. People travel to Blackduck all year round to engage in seasonal outdoor activities. Several people are relocating and retiring to Blackduck as it offers a unique location. It is the gateway to the Chippewa National Forest, has a small, wonderful school district, is the second largest city in Beltrami County, and has quick access to a regional airport and hospital. Minnesota State Highway 71 and 72 both intersect in Blackduck, and according to MnDOT, average about 4,900 vehicles passing through that corner each year, bringing a lot of regional traffic to the city. Blackduck serves smaller northern communities as well, as it is minutes away from Itasca County and Coochin. People that call Blackduck home do so for its remote location, but also the basic necessities a small city provides. We are asking for this 0.5% sales tax to support our amenities. The first is our city-owned campground, Pine Tree Park. This is used by visitors and locals and has been since 1972. The campground provides 32 campsites on the east side of beautiful Blackduck Lake. And other than 2 Minnesota DNR boat launches, Pine Tree Park is the only accessible public property on Blackduck Lake. Pine Tree Park provides campers and travelers a public RV dump station and is the only one located between Bemidji State Park and Big Falls Campground, which is a distance between those two of 67 miles. Funding from this proposal of the local sales tax would support improvements to the aging water and sewer utilities and provide full RV hookups to the campground. The City of Blackduck also offers visitors and the community a public walking and biking trail and a wayside rest. Funding from our local sales tax would assist in resurfacing our existing trail and improve playground equipment and provide year-round restroom facilities. Our Blackduck Golf Course was built in 1938 and has seen several improvements since the early 1990s, including a new clubhouse, cart shed, course equipment, and irrigation to our tee boxes and greens. The course is only a 9-hole course, but it is a par 3 and very challenging to avid golfers, and is used by visitors of the community, our local golf teams, resort goers, and campers alike. The golf course has currently over 75 members, many of which are snowbirds and long-standing community members. In 2021, Blackduck Golf Course had a record number of walk-on traffic with over 3,300 rounds of golf played. The course is adjacent to the city campground and just steps away from Blackduck Lake. Funding from this proposal would support improvements to the existing irrigation system, extending the lines to our fairways. We also have a Blackduck Library, and it is a branch of the Kichigami Regional Library System and currently operates from a modestly sized building equipped to serve local residents with a full library system, free high-speed broadband and technology use, and free summer children's programs. Visitors of the library take advantage of programs offered by Blackduck Community Education. In 2021, the library had over 3,500 visitors, and summer children's reading programs served 32 participants. Funding from this local sales tax proposal would support an expansion to our existing library facility to provide more people access to the programs it offers. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Rigas. Members, any questions for Ms. Rigas or Representative Grossell? Seeing none, with that, I lay over House File 3703 for possible inclusion in the Property Tax Division Report. And I want to just make sure, is Representative Becker-Finn available for her bill? Awesome, great.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to let you know.
Oh, sorry, Representative Grossell, I'm so sorry. I forgot to give you the last word. Why don't you
Nope,
go ahead
that's-
first? And
You
then...
did, you did just fine. You got it laid over. So that's all I needed.
Thank you, Representative Grossell. I'm sorry about that. It's been a long day. The next item on our agenda is House File 3194. Representative Becker-Finn, would you like to move your bill before our division?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, I would like to move House File 3194 in front of the committee.
Thank you, Representative Becker-Finn. Please go ahead and present your bill.
Yeah, thank you. So I feel like we've gone through a lot of this, so I'm just going to try to be one of the presentations that's short and to the point. The request here is a 0.5% local sales tax. There are 3 items that the city of Roseville is looking at funding. There is a maintenance facility, a pedestrian bridge. So if folks are familiar with Rosedale, the Highway 36 Snelling interchange is where we're looking at putting that bridge. And then upgrades and expansion of our passport and license center, which is very highly used by a lot of folks from around the region. And so those are the 3 things we're looking at funding. And with that, I will turn it over to our mayor, Mayor Dan Rowe.
Thank you, Representative Becker-Finn. Mayor of Roseville, Dan Rowe, please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for considering Roseville's bill. Again, I'm Mayor Dan Rowe. I usually don't have too much trouble with people pronouncing it, but the spelling sometimes becomes a challenge for folks. Appreciate your consideration of our request to go to the voters of Roseville for our 0.5% local sales tax. For a little bit of context, in Roseville's case, we are a net contributor to fiscal disparities, and we don't receive local government aid. Roseville, we're very proud to have a very vibrant retail and commercial sector. We certainly understand we receive a lot of benefits from that in terms of the relative weight of our local levy on our residents as well as our businesses. We do also know that because we have that significant commercial and retail sector, there are additional costs that we see in terms of whether it's public safety or just other maintenance costs, things like that, infrastructure costs related to that. And I think what we've been hearing from our community over the years is the feeling that while we do significantly benefit in terms of our property tax levy from our local commercial activity, the sense in the community is that perhaps the balance isn't quite there. And so we have been looking for opportunities, understanding our responsibility to manage our property tax funding and our utility fee funding, and make sure that we're providing for the needs of the community and our visitors through those means as much as possible, but also looking for opportunities that might make sense to take advantage of the ability to do a limited local option sales tax for specific projects as is outlined in the legislation. So with that, just a little more context, Roseville actually borders on both Minneapolis and St. Paul directly. We also have additional 8 communities that surround Roseville, and within 15 miles, we have about 1.5 million residents. Each day, well, so our evening population, to sort of parallel Golden Valley's presentation, our evening population is about 36,000. We do during the day have about 34,000 people working in Roseville at a couple of thousand businesses, both retail as well as significant commercial presence, such as Roseville's own Old Dutch Potato Chips. And in addition to that, we have both I-35W and Highway 36 going through our community. And so we have, tens of thousands of commuters that require, emergency services occasionally from the city. And in addition to that, we have about 40,000 shoppers a day just at Rosedale alone. And of course, Rosedale is the center of a larger, regional retail center, if you will. So that's sort of the context here and some of the background. I would note also that in our situation in Roseville, we have approximately 70 plus square feet of retail space per capita, whereas I think usually the nearest competitors in terms of retail space per capita, as it's looked at regionally or even nationwide, are more in the 50 range. So we're a significantly smaller community with a fairly large commercial and retail establishment. So this is also the context of our ask here. And certainly we wouldn't be asking for local option sales tax if there weren't the costs associated with having those commercial establishments in our community, in addition to the benefits that we see. With that, the projects are, as was mentioned, a maintenance facility at a cost of about $42 million, a license and passport center at a cost of about $7 million, and as was mentioned, the Highway 36 pedestrian bridge at Snelling at a cost of about $16 million. These costs all include the planning, design, as well as the construction costs. All of these will be funded through a 16-year 0.5% sales tax. And as we all know, the sales tax would go away once either the projects are paid for or the 16 years ends, whichever comes first. And we don't at this time anticipate that Roseville would come back, although I don't want to promise for future mayors and councils. We don't anticipate we would necessarily be coming back for a continuation of that local sales tax once those projects are completed. Just a little more about each of the projects, and I'll start with the pedestrian crossing. So right now, as Representative Becker-Finn noted, the crossing at 36 and Snelling is entirely a vehicle crossing. There are no pedestrian facilities on Snelling Avenue, although I imagine people might attempt it, but they're taking their lives in their own hands, being that it's a cloverleaf interchange and the speed limit is 50, and who knows how fast cars are going. And so we have, a fairly significant multifamily population on the south side of 36 that is anticipated to grow as we look at transit-oriented redevelopment of the Harmar Mall area over the years. Certainly in our planning through work with Met Council, we've been identifying that area as a targeted transit-oriented design, which means mixed use, more high-density residential. And in addition, at Rosedale's own plans call for hundreds of units of multifamily residential on the north side of 36. And the nearest pedestrian crossing in that area is to either go a half mile west to Fairview or a half mile east to Hamlin Avenue, both of which have narrow sidewalk facilities and aren't really designed for significant pedestrian or bicycle use. And both of those streets also don't have significant shoulders for bicycle use. And bicycle commuting is a pretty popular thing, both for Roseville residents as well as residents who pass through Roseville as part of their commute. So that's the pedestrian bridge. License and Passport Center, we do approximately 200,000 transactions each year. About 80% of the customers, based on recent surveys, are outside of Roseville, and so it is a very regional type of use. I am frequently complimented by my fellow mayors and council members outside of Roseville for the service they receive there when they come to renew their various DNR licenses or vehicle licenses or get a passport. And so that facility is, once again, has that regional benefit and is about a $7 million cost. And then the maintenance facility is really an ability for us to be able to adequately maintain and operate our maintenance fleet and equipment to serve both streets, which obviously mostly serve local traffic on local streets, but more importantly, stormwater, sewer, and water facilities, which have a significant service to the commercial activities in Roseville. And so that's the regional significance of that, is to serve those visitors to the community. And more information on all those projects is in the information we've provided. So I'll stop there and stand for any questions. And I just note that our Public Works Director, Mark Culver, is with us in case the mayor can't answer any of the questions that come up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Rowe. Representative Becker-Finn, any other additional comments before I go to member questions?
No, I feel like it's pretty straightforward and happy to answer any questions.
All right, members, any member questions? I don't think people got the extra coffee I did during break. With that, Representative Becker-Finn, final comments.
I just really appreciate you considering this bill. I wouldn't be bringing this bill forward if I didn't think it was necessary. And I think, we're using the tools that we have to make our community better, and hope that members will support it.
Thank you, Representative Becker-Finn. With that, I lay over House File 3194 for possible inclusion in a property tax division report. Next up on our agenda is House File 3763. Representative Hertaus, would you like to move House File 3763 before the division?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that House File 3763, Representative Kiel from Grand Forks, be moved for possible inclusion.
Thank you. Representative Kiel, I see you have an amendment. Representative Hertaus, would you like to move the A2 amendment?
So moved.
Representative Kiel, could you please describe your amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very much appreciate. I'm going to correct my Representative Hertaus. It is not Grand Forks, but East Grand Forks. Very important in my world, east of the Red River and in Minnesota. So anyway, the amendment is to address the finances so that there is a limit to the request on the sales tax that has been proposed. So with
There's
that,
only one Grand Forks as far as we're concerned.
yeah. And it's not East Grand. So thank you. Madam Chair, would you just like my testifiers to explain the bill?
No, why don't we'll put the amendment.
Oh, we gotta
on
pass it
first. So yeah, so are there any questions to the amendment? Seeing none, this will be a voice vote, so please unmute. All those in favor of the A2 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The amendment is adopted. Representative Kiel, go ahead and present your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members. I appreciate you hearing this bill. I have with me Mayor. I almost referred to the former mayor. I apologize. Now I'm stuttering. Steve Gander, who is here with us today, and then Mr. Reed Hutton, who is also part of this, head of this project. So I'd like them to explain the project and why we're requesting the sales tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Kiel. Mayor of East Grand Forks, Steve Gander, please state your name for the record and proceed.
Okay, my name is Steve Gander, and I am Mayor of East Grand Forks. Madam Chair, thank you so much for this opportunity to make this presentation. Members of the committee, the reason that we're doing this in the first place, as most of you probably know, what started it was The fact that we need to revamp our refrigeration systems to be compliant with the EPA phase out ozone depleting substances. And R22 is considered a class 2 ozone depleting substance, which means it cannot be produced imported, but that existing supplies can be used up until they're all gone. Of course, with the ozone layer depleted, UV radiation reaches harmful levels. The need to eliminate R22 and protection of the ozone layer shows the regional significance of this project, since we all spend time outside and we all share the same atmosphere. But once we begin a significant construction project on one of our buildings, we need to get caught up on some ADA requirements, which is a good thing, but it adds millions of dollars to the cost. Along with that, there are some air quality issues to attend to. 20 years ago, it was kind of a badge of honor to have the stinkiest locker room in the whole district, but now we realize that that's actually going to exacerbate asthma and other respiratory diseases. And so we need some major upgrades in our air handling facilities. As for our locker rooms, we've added some space with the growing programs, but the spaces are cramped, really don't provide adequate separation for the male and female athletes. Other changes you're going to hear about from Reed Hutton, and he'll have some more detail, but we're going to actually dedicate ourselves to expanding the use of our facilities to all 4 seasons. And we're also trying to expand our offering to people of all ages to utilize these programs in these venues. By adding indoor turf, we'll have practice facilities for a variety of sports outside of ice program seasons. And by adding artificial turf to the baseball field, we'll have a facility where nearby towns can hold practices and have games when their fields are unusable in the spring, fall, and after heavy rains. This has already happened at our high school soccer and football field, with much greater utilization of the field from other programs in the region. So small towns are coming in and practicing and having games when, again, heavy rains or outside of the peak season for grass. But with the improvements in the baseball complex right alongside the Civic Center, we can make the amenities of the Civic Center available to our baseball participants as well. We've taken the input from a committee of about a dozen citizens to formulate the proposed renovations. These will benefit our entire region for decades. We know that we need to do lots of fundraising and add city dollars to make all the changes, but we look forward to the opportunity to bring this to our voters this fall for them to decide. And now, Madam Chair, with your permission, I'd like to have Reed Hutton continue our presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Gander. Next up, we have the Parks and Rec Superintendent Reed Hutman. Mr. Hutman, please state your name for the record and proceed.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. Reed Hutman, I'm the Parks and Recreation Superintendent with the City of East Grand Forks. And thank you, Mayor, for the introduction as well. Just to touch on it and maybe some detail to what Mayor Gander introduced and preluded is we've formed a building committee in East Grand Forks that has worked really hard over the last 2 years to hear our residents and get a really strong understanding of the impact that our recreation facilities currently make in our community and how we would like to see these recreation facilities better serve our community through the year-round basis. This committee of 12 members is made up of many demographics and interested user groups that we see as having a fit in seeing and using expanded offerings within recreation facilities in our community. And they've put in a lot of work, both in-person community forums and online forums. Throughout the last year, we've had multiple online surveys out and sought feedback with the response of more than 1,000 residents in East Grand Forks telling us what's important to them in their recreation facilities. And those interests and offerings are reflected in the master plan that we've developed. The master plan, one portion of it, an important portion of the funding plan to be able to see these facility improvements through is the local sales tax. And as Mayor Gander touched on, we certainly expect to continue to work really hard as a community to be able to fundraise and make up the remaining funding gap above and beyond what local sales tax revenue could provide to the project. The number one goal for our facility improvements at the 2 sites that we have included in the plan is to, as some other communities have stated today as well, is to make sure that these existing recreation facilities can stand the test of time, to make sure we make the improvements to the refrigeration plants and the ice arenas, make ADA improvements, make improvements to the indoor air quality through the HVAC and mechanical systems, to really update some infrastructure that in a lot of cases has not been updated since the buildings were built in the 1970s. The second goal of these projects is to further expand the recreation offerings for our region and our community. Right now, largely these facilities serve a 4 or 5 month a year season as indoor ice facilities and basically remain shuttered the rest of the year. And that does not serve the purpose of our community today, the way that it did when they were built in the 1970s. And so really that's the master plan side of this project, is to be able to expand the amenities that these facilities have, make them more than just indoor ice arenas or baseball fields, but really make them multi-purpose facilities that can serve not only our residents, but our region as well. The two sites that we have are the Civic Center Sports Complex. That's the site of one existing ice arena. That's our primary ice arena in our community that hosts a lot of our large events and our high school activities. The main plan at that, as Mayor Gander alluded to, is to add an addition that builds new locker rooms and addresses a lot of the accessibility and HVAC, mechanical, indoor air quality type of concerns the existing facility has. And the second phase of that is to build a new outdoor baseball field that would be synthetic turf from fence to fence and would allow us the opportunity to host multiple events, multiple games earlier in the season than what our current grass facilities do. Secondly, we feel that by going with a synthetic turf surface, it would open up a new avenue of multiple sports beyond just baseball that would be able to make use of that facility. The second site that's included in our plan is the VFW Blue Line Arena site. That currently houses 2 ice arenas that are standalone buildings that are in large need of improvement to the current existing infrastructure. And the second phase of that plan is to build an addition that connects those 2 arenas together and really furthers the way that facility can serve our community, again, beyond the ice season, but also as in the competitive spirit of being able to host youth tournaments and youth gatherings. In current day, youth parents that look to bring their teams and their children to sporting events oftentimes look for a place that they can have all of the games be under one roof, so to speak, and not have to bounce across town to multiple facilities. And we think that by connecting those 2 facilities together, it affords us a new competitive opportunity to be able to offer events for as many as 16 youth teams all under one roof, and really become a regional draw to bring that back to our community. Competitively, from a regional perspective, knowing that we do, as we talked about, border with Grand Forks, North Dakota, in recent years with some facility improvements that have been made from the ice arena perspective in Grand Forks, East Grand Forks has fallen behind competitively in its ability to attract interest and host youth tournaments of that nature. And we feel that our community feels that is one of the most important aspects of this project, is being able to improve our amenities that maybe put us back above Grand Forks as our neighbors, as a competitive spirit of hosting tournaments and gathering interest from other communities outside the region to visit and compete in our facilities. And finally, the last thing I would like to touch on in closing is in East Grand Forks, we do have a proven history of local success with the sales tax increase. In 2015, our voters approved by more than 70% margin a 1% sales tax increase to fund renovations to our outdoor swimming pool. We expected at the time that it would take 5 years for that pool project to be paid off in full with sales tax revenue, and it far exceeded that from a revenue expectation. The pool project was completed and the project was paid for in full in less than 3 years, allowing that 1% sales tax to sunset at the end of September in 2020. So we have a proven record that it has worked. The swimming pool, I will add, regionally has been a great success. The last season prior to its closing for renovations, it had less than 8,000 daily visitors for a seasonal pool. In comparison, last summer, that swimming pool had 22,000 daily visitors, so a more than 250% increase. And we know we have regional users of the swimming pool, people holding season passes at that pool from as far away as Thief River Falls, which is a 50-mile drive from East Grand Forks. So we know it works. We know it's bringing people into our community from across the region. And we hope that you will hear our bill and give us an opportunity to let our voters vote for it in November.
Thank you, Mr. Hunton. Members, any questions for the testifiers or Representative Kiel? Did I hear you right that you paid off the swimming pool in 3 years?
Uh-huh.
Yes, that's correct. It was a little less than 3 years. The pool project was fully funded and paid off.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for that information. Seeing no questions, Representative Kiel, final word.
Thank you, Madam Chair and the committee. I really appreciate you hearing this bill and hope it is part of our final project. Just remember up north, we like to see you all come and play hockey and swimming pools. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Kiel. With that, I lay over House File 3763 as amended for possible inclusion in the Property Tax Division report.
Madam Chair.
Member, oh,
Thank you.
oh, thank you, Mayor Ganders. Sorry, I had flipped to another screen. Sorry about that. Members, we are coming around the corner to the end of a very long day. I want to thank you for all sticking with us. We have our final bill on the agenda. We have House File 3969 before us. Representative Hertaus, would you like to move House File 3069 before the division?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm proud to move the last file of the day, House File 3969. Representative Swedzinski for possible inclusion in the division report.
Thank you, Representative Hertaus. Representative Swedzinski, welcome to the committee. I understand that you have an amendment that you'd like to briefly speak to. Representative Hertaus, would you like to move I think it's the A1 amendment before the committee or A4 amendment before the committee for discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move the A4 amendment.
With that, Representative Swedzinski, welcome to the Property Tax Division. Would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The A4 amendment it's kind of a new idea that we're pushing. It's been addressed in other communities where we essentially create a revenue sharing program with these local option sales taxes. And, oftentimes we look at the regional significance of a project, but also the regional input. And, what the amendment does is create an economic development zone essentially around some of the regions that are implementing local option sales taxes. And what the A4 amendment does is create a special account for economic development to fit within state guidelines. So the same types of projects for the cities that surround a regional center that enacts a local option sales tax. The A4 amendment takes 10% of revenue that's generated through the local option sales tax, if approved by local voters within the city of Marshall, and distributes it to communities that reside within about a 35-mile radius. And that takes into account the uniqueness of dollars flowing into regional centers. On average, some local option sales taxes in regional centers bring in 60% of revenue from outside sources, some 25, some 35. And but this is really about a conversation that I think we need to have, not only for the regional impact, but how do we keep dollars in the communities that provide them? And while people make a choice to come to our regional centers and spend money, the idea of creating an account like this is to make sure that, it's a shared cost, that there are shared costs and shared need, that, for communities that maybe don't have a large economic base, a community that maybe doesn't have a lot of retail, a lot of others, those dollars are still being generated and spent someplace else. And this would allow some of those dollars to come back to recognize that dollars spent in a community can potentially stay with the people rather than the community in which they're spent. I would like to answer any questions. I don't know if any members have looked at the amendment, thoughts. This is closely resembled to the account that's kind of created for the city of Rochester. They have a 4% revenue essentially, and this is 10%. Yeah, so I just wanted to open it up to members and to chat about it and to get some thoughts. So, can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Thank you so much. I was just looking down at the script here. Representative Hertaz.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this is a interesting suggestion or idea. It plays a little bit on a conversation that we had a little bit earlier with one of the other bills, Marquardt and myself talking about the regional draw and increasing the disparity between the cities that get the half cent tax and the effect on the surrounding communities. So it's an interesting idea, but I think it's not ready for prime time, but you know, I think it's something that should be discussed.
Thank you, Representative Hertaz. Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Swedzinski, I like the idea. It's a novel idea. And a lot of us have said for a while that the local option sales taxes will create winners and losers. The smaller towns and cities don't have the retail base. So I like your idea. I like the concept. That, I would support it if you get the language worked up and whatever. Nice idea. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Any other questions or comments? Just a reminder for folks, this is somewhat similar to the DMCC, but that bill went to multiple committees, and it is the hope of the chair that we wouldn't be dragging the property tax division bill into multiple committees before we get it to Chair Marquardt. But maybe Representative Swedzinski would like to keep working on it, maybe as a standalone bill to go
Yes.
to local government, and a bunch of other folks would probably like to have some input on it as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that while we sometimes have a good idea, we do need to get more of a community input in this, but also I believe other legislators have some good ideas when it comes to this particular area. And not necessarily winners and losers, but I think a lot of our voice needs to be thought of is when we're looking at constituents who has a voice in it. And if the vote is taken and a majority of folks that will pay, or even a minority of the folks that will pay but have no potential real voice in the vote. So when we're looking at some of these regional sales taxes for regional projects, that maybe they should be approached in a regional basis so that a greater amount of people that actually pay can also vote. And so with that, Madam Chair, I will continue to work on this, work on the language so that we can have a broader conversation, not just for a certain region within Minnesota, but potentially as this moves forward, any one of these 14 or 15 bills, that this could be a possibility as those things move forward. So with that, Madam Chair, I'm looking forward to hearing from representatives from the City of Marshall, and would like to pull the amendment before your consideration so that we don't drag this down and put this into other committees that would potentially slow this vote down. So thank you, Madam Chair, for the time.
Thank you, Representative Swedzinski. With that, I will move to the testifier. We have with us the Mayor of Marshall, Robert Bryans. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Bob Burns. I'm the mayor of the City of Marshall. Also with me, if there's questions that need to be answered, is City Administrator Sharon Hansen. Madam Chair, if it's okay, I will, and members, I'll proceed with the presentation.
Go ahead, proceed, Mayor.
So the request of this legislation is to the authorization to go to a vote of the public this November for a continuation of our current local option sales tax. Our current local option sales tax was approved by the voters in 2012, and first year of collection was 2013. The purpose of that was for a regional event and expo center, as well as the regional emergency response and industrial center. The request for the extension is for the construction of a regional aquatic center. The regional aquatic center would replace a swimming pool / aquatic center that was originally constructed in 1938. There's been a number of fixes in between the time, but it is in need of complete replacement. We, because of the age of the facility, the infrastructure of it is deteriorating. We lose 12 to 15,000 gallons of water a day. during the summer. We that does not meet ADA compliance, either the swimming area or the bathhouse, and most importantly, it doesn't meet the regional needs. We are a regional center, but we're a small community of 14,000. Our daytime population roughly doubles that, and these are people for services, for retail. We have a numerous area that obviously do not have swimming centers, and those families are coming to the city of Marshall for recreation opportunities, for swimming, and for swimming lessons. Now, we don't differentiate in cost, participation costs based on residence. If you're out of town, you pay the same as a resident of the city of Marshall. This is broadly supported in the community. Our Chamber of Commerce is supportive of this. It represents a continuation of a current tax, not an increase in tax. And we feel it's important for recruitment of families for a region of the state that does have decline in population. With that, Madam Chair, I will stand open for any questions, either directed at myself or City Administrator Sharon Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Burns, Mayor Burns. Did Ms. Hansen want to speak, or do you want to just go to member questions?
I can just stand for questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Hansen. Members have any questions about the project? Seeing none. Representative Swedzinski, final comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Administrator Hansen as well. Members, this is probably one of the oldest pools in the state. It is in need of replacement. So with that, I would appreciate your support and the inclusion in a potential bill that moves forward out of your committee, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Swedzinski. With that, I lay over House File 3969 for possible inclusion in the Property Tax Division report.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank members for hanging with us today for the wild and wonderful world of local option sales tax. I think this was an easier approach than having it being 3 different hearings, but if you think differently, let me know so we don't repeat that again. But next week, we're also going to be having 2 hearings. One will be at our normal time on Wednesday, the 16th at 3 p.m. And then we will have one on Friday, the 18th, that will go from 8:30 to noon. We have a lot of bills around local government aid, property tax refunds, and the like. So look for those postings. And then after that, members, just so you can look forward, Wednesday the 23rd will be our final division day for hearing bills. So just 3 more committee times for bills, members. We see the deadlines looming around the corner. And I want to just check to see if anybody has any questions about the times next week. Seeing none, with that, members, we are adjourned.